what's your advice on this idea, right? And instead of, well, give me your feedback or give me your opinion on it, you get a critic there. If you ask for advice, you get a partner in the process. Continue to give first, and you will be more successful. But the key is give first. Never give a round number for a budget.
Today we have an absolute legend in the world of psychology and persuasion, Dr. Robert Cialdini, author of Influence, the Psychology of Persuasion, a book that's practically a Bible for anyone in leadership, sales, or product management. In this episode, we'll dive into the art of ethical influence, uncover small changes you can make to create massive results, and explore how principles like reciprocity, authority, and social proof can transform how you lead teams, align stakeholders, and build trust with customers. Get ready for actionable insights you can implement today. Let's jump in. What motivated you to find the 7 Principles of Persuasion, and how did you find them?
Well, what motivated me was an interest in understanding why I would say yes to things that I didn't sometimes even want. And it was not the features of the thing, it was the way someone presented those features to me, the psychology of the delivery system that they used to make their case. And I thought that was very interesting, and it would be worth studying. The way I found them was to, first of all, look at the research literature in behavioral science. What are the studies that show what causes people to say yes to requests and proposals and recommendations? But I also then did an unusual thing. I entered the sales training programs and the marketing programs and the advertising programs of various companies by becoming I applied for jobs in them, and I listened to what they told me worked in their training programs. What caused people in their business to say yes to them? Well, I matched that, what was powerful in the real world of business, with what the scientists had found, and where there was an overlap, where there was a combination of both sides were saying the same thing. That's how I found the 7 principles. There were only 7 that everybody that was using and had scientific evidence describing why they were successful.
And what is the key difference between influence and manipulation?
So that's a really important question, because I think ethics of the influence process is very important to me. And I think there are a lot of ways to be influential, and some of them include manipulation. So what I like is to describe the difference between persuasion and manipulation. Persuasion is informing people into change by giving them evidence of the reasons why they should change. And some of them are social reasons. Look at all the other people around you who are doing this. Look at all the authorities who are saying this is the right thing. All right. So that's, you can inform people into assent. Manipulation is to deceive them or to coerce them, to push them in a particular direction. And people react negatively to that. Maybe if you have the power over them, you can push them into a change. But when you're gone, they will they will change back to their old ways because they resent being coerced. And certainly, if you've ever deceived someone, they never want to come back to you for future interactions. So that's the difference. Showing people the principles of influence that naturally exist in the situation. There's true authority here. There's true social proof. There's true scarcity. Whatever is truly there, just pointing to it and having that information inform people into yes.
So as a product manager, designers, engineers, we always need to get buy-in from others, or we need to collaborate with from others. And how is asking for advice instead of opinions lead to better buy-in and collaboration?
Yeah. So let's say you have an idea that you think you would like to move up your organization. You think that it would be very successful, but you need to get buy-in for it from your colleagues before you go to your upper level managers or superiors. So how do you get that buy-in from your colleagues? And typically what we do is to show them a summary or a blueprint or a outline of our idea, and we ask for their opinion, right? That's a mistake. Not asking for input from other people, but asking for it in terms of their opinion. Because when you ask for an opinion, you get a critic. You get someone who steps away from you and goes inside themselves to critique your idea. If instead you change one word and ask for their advice, you get a partner. You get a collaborator on the idea, someone who is cooperating with you toward this goal. And the research is very clear. If you change that one word and ask for someone's advice, they then judge your idea more positively because you've asked them to join you as a partner in this. And secondly, when they give you input, they give you better, more constructive information about how to improve your idea because they're part of it. So that's why I always recommend asking for advice.
So let's say I'm a product manager. I need to work with engineers to ship a product or a feature. Instead of going on my own and tell them, hey, this is my opinion. What do you think about it? Go tell them, hey, this is my idea. What's your advice?
What's your advice on this idea, right? And instead of, well, give me your feedback or give me your opinion on it, you get a critic there. If you ask for advice, you get a partner in the process.
This is just an easy tool that I can start implement starting tomorrow.
You know, Mahmoud, this is what I've been focusing on recently, what we call the small bigs. What are the smallest changes we can make to our persuasive approach that will produce the biggest improvements in our persuasive success? So changing one word, right? It doesn't cost anything. It doesn't even take one more breath. It's the same breath. You just choose a word differently that is associated with something like partnership as opposed to critique.
Oh man, that's so exciting. Let me start with the first principle. First is reciprocation. Can you
Yes.
just help me understand can you help me understand the psychology behind why people feel obligated to reciprocate when giving something first?
Right. So, for example, in every human culture, there is a rule for reciprocation that says you must not take without giving in return. And we have very nasty names for people who take without giving in return. We call them, in English, we call them moochers or takers or ingrates. Nobody wants to be called that. Nobody wants to be characterized like that by their friends and peers. And so if they receive, they feel obligated to give back so that they are seen as an equitable and just person, right? So in all societies, we have that rule because societies work better when people give back what they have received. Otherwise, nobody's going to give first. And that will be terrible for a society if nobody is providing benefits first. But if they know if I give, people are obligated to give back to me, well, that frees them to give resources, time, and energy to someone else because they're not giving it away. It's going to come back to them by the rule of reciprocity.
Oh, wow. Okay. So let me tell you one of the problems that we have here in UAE specifically, because it's a transient city. Our customers here do not have loyalty to certain products because we have expats almost every new expats almost every 2 years. So how can businesses use the principle of reciprocation to improve customer loyalty?
So one thing they can do is to give special programs or bonuses or discounts to existing customers, right? To people who have been part of their organization, and they show them how grateful they are by giving them special opportunities or preferred access, those kinds of things. They can get first chance at an opportunity and so on. So that's how they can do it. Continue to give first, and you will be more successful. But the key is give first. Go first. There was a study done in the countries of Brazil and Colombia in McDonald's locations. And for 1 week, every family that came in, the children got a balloon. Each one got a balloon. Some of them got a balloon as they were leaving, right? So thank you for your coming to our McDonald's location. We appreciate your business. Here's a balloon for each of the children, right? We often do see that. We often do that ourselves. The other half of the customers, the children got a balloon when they entered. It was a gift before the parents made a decision. And those parents bought 25% more food if the children got the balloon first, because now they felt grateful and obligated to McDonald's. And in fact, if you look at the data inside that study, not only was there a 25% increase in food purchases, there was a 20% increase in coffee purchases. Well, that wasn't for the kids. That was the parents felt grateful, because if you do something for my child, you've done something for me.
Oh, it's amazing. Now I'm s- now I'm thinking, what type of gifts is most effective for triggering this reciprocation? Is it the gift should be expensive? Is it should be tailored? Is it should be recent, trendy?
Yes, and there are 3 things that enhance the power of a gift that's first given. First, it should be meaningful. That is, it shouldn't be just a minor thing like, what's the time of day? Oh, well, it's 10 minutes to 11. That's not a meaningful, important gift. But if it's meaningful to somebody, all right, that's one thing. Secondly, if it's unexpected, if it's not something that, okay, you give people a gift on their birthday and so on, or at certain times as in the day or in the year, you get gifts, so on. If they're unexpected, that's more powerful. And finally, if they are customized to the preferences and needs of the recipient, if you give them a gift that you know they like, or it's personalized to them, right? Because, so for example, uh, I work for a company, and they give out pens to their customers, right? With their name on it. Well, after I gave this lecture on reciprocity and the importance of personalizing, they gave me a pen with their name on one side and my name on the other side. It was for me. It was personalized for me. And Mahmoud, I carry that pen around wherever I go. Those other pens, I throw them in a drawer with 50 others from 50 other companies. But this one was personalized to me. I carry it wherever I go. And every time I take it out, I see my name and that company's name bonded together. So the more that we can personalize, the better the impact of the gift will be.
Oh, that's so exciting for me to know, because now I realize the number of mistakes that I did, because we used to give credit for our SaaS product. The clients did not care about SaaS product. They would appreciate it more if you give them a Starbucks or coffee or
Yes,
something.
yes. And especially if you knew that they liked a particular kind of coffee, Starbucks, but or some other. I have a friend who was my speaker's agent in Europe, and she had a customer uh, who was a very slow payer. So after she would arrange conferences for this person, she would send an invoice, and it would take 6 months for him to pay. Right? And she asked me, "What can I do?" And I said, "Well, what do you know about this guy?" And she said, "Well, I know he's an art aficionado. He loves art." So I said, "Where does he live?" "Well, he lives in another city than I am." "Well, then go to your local art museum and get postcards of exhibits that he hasn't seen because they're in your, and with your invoice, place a card for him because he likes art and say, "I know you like art. Here's an interesting exhibit in my city's art museum." And she cut the delay from 6 months to 3 months. Now, yes. Now, one more thing. She said, "It's wonderful." I said, "Well, what else do you know about this?" After she told me this, she said, "Well, I know that he likes modern art, especially." Okay, now go to your modern art museum and get one for that's even more customized to his preferences and include it. And she says, "I now get paid immediately."
Again, back to our original point, such a small difference. It's
Yes,
a small thing to do, but it have a huge difference.
exactly right. We live in a world that is so information overloaded, so stimulus saturated. We need small things that we can do that make a difference because we're just too busy to have to do big, involved, complicated things. But figuring out something like, what does this person like? And then giving a gift first, that's great. Yeah, yeah.
But I understood personalization, but having an unexpected gift, I'm thinking. So my girlfriend always appreciates when I give her flowers when she does not expect it at all, and she likes it
Yes.
more when I give her on Valentine or on her birthday.
Yeah. Yes. So she likes it more when
Yes,
it's unexpected.
yes.
Yeah, exactly. Any kind of gift that is like that. You you're just thinking of me, not just you're thinking of a Valentine's Day obligation. It's just for me. And the more that you know her and know that she likes tickets to the opera or tickets to the theater, or then that's even better.
Oh, Robert, I'm so excited for this episode. Uh, did we cover everything on reciprocation before we jump onto the liking principle, or we're good?
Yeah, I think we have. I think one thing that's nice about um, uh, reciprocation is that when you give first, you are opening up an interaction because the obligation is for them to give something in return, right? You are beginning something when you give first. What we do too often is to give afterwards. We, like in the McDonald's case, after they have um, they have purchased their food, the kids get the balloon, right? That closes the interaction. that ends the interaction. Giving first begins it. And we get chances for contact and interaction with our customers and clients and prospects.
Next time I'm going to a restaurant, I'm gonna tip at the beginning of the meal, not at the end of the meal, and see how it's different. I'm gonna report back to you.
Okay.
Let me
Well, I'll
jump
tell you
into.
what you can do instead of something that expensive.
Oh, please tell me.
Here's a small thing. After they come and they give you your water and they give you your menus and tell you what the special of the house is, say, James, you're doing a good job for us here. Give them that compliment. They will live up to the reputation you have given them.
Oh, that's
You know,
amazing.
it doesn't cost you a cent.
True.
You're doing a good job for us, James. James is going to continue to do a good job now for you. Right?
Oh, wow.
And
Robert,
it's a gift. Yeah.
let me ask you this. Were you always this people person, people oriented?
I was always, I'm not very good at directions and physical things. So like my wife says, she could rearrange the furniture in the house and I wouldn't even notice it. But I'm aware of my social environment. I'm very aware of changes and dynamics and so on. Yeah, all my life.
Uh, Let me ask you a question about the second principle, which is very interesting. The liking principle. What are the two primary factors that influence whether someone likes another person?
Yes. So there are two. One is pointing out similarities between ourselves and the person we would like to influence, right? There was a study done on negotiators who were having a difficult time, a certain kind of negotiation. They were negotiating online by email, and this kind of negotiation typically produced 30% failures. There was no mutual agreed on resolution. Everybody walked away with nothing. So the researchers tried one small change. They had the negotiators, before they began to bargain, to send information about one another. Where did you grow up? Where did you go to school? Where do you live? What kind of family did you come from? What kind of family do you have now? These kinds of similarities. What kind of foods do you like? What kind of movies do you like? Right? Okay. Deadlock negotiations went from 30% to 6% because people found things in common with one another. Oh, you're a runner? I'm a runner. Or you like Korean food? I love Korean food. That was all. So just similarity produces favorability and a warmth toward the other person. We like people who are like us. We just have to show them the ways that we are like them, right? So we spend time with them, or we go on internet and we find out about them. And then if there are some commonalities, we never cheat. We never claim there's a similarity that isn't. But when we find one, then we bring that up in the conversation, and the liking process has been initiated.
I have a small confession to make here. When I first heard about this principle like 12 years ago, and I used to interview a lot and get rejected for product interviews. And then one day I researched the interview. What does he like? He like fishing. He like the outdoors. He like camping. And I seen a few things that we have in common. And when the interview happened, I kind of dropped it nonchalantly in the middle of the conversation. And he liked me so much more. I don't know. I felt a little bit like I manipulated the entire conversation. Or did you see anybody using it this way?
Yeah, yeah. No, I think that's exactly the case. And it sometimes all we need to do is do our research online. We have an ally in the internet now. It can tell us a lot about people. But even a few minutes of sociable conversation where we find out a little bit more about each other before we get down to business, that can be enough to surface one or another of these commonalities.
Now I'm thinking from the other side. How can I defend myself from someone using this principle
Yeah.
either to influence me or sell me something that I don't want?
Okay, this is good. In my book, Influence, I have these 7 principles. And at the end of every chapter, each principle has a chapter. And at the end of every chapter, there's a section called How to Defend Yourself Against This Principle. So here's what you do for liking. If you find yourself liking this person more than you would have thought of in the amount of time that you then step back from the situation and say, what just happened? Oh, he gave me a soft drink. Oh, he laughed at my joke. Oh, he said that his wife grew up where I grew up. Oh, he complimented me on my choice or my sweater or whatever. And then say to yourself, okay, step back from this situation and separate this person from what he is offering. Separate the person from the deal. Right? If you're in an automobile showroom and you meet and this automobile salesman is very likable and he does all the things I just mentioned, and you really like this guy, in a short period of time, this is the thing you should recognize. Wait a minute, step back and realize you are going to be driving that Toyota off the lot, not this guy. He's going to stay there. You're not going to get him. So focus on the merits of the offer, on the merits of the product or service that he's offering. Yeah.
And if there is any, and so on the principle of liking, is there any things that if you have more in common will influence more? What do I mean? So if both have the same values or the same hobbies or the same
Uh,
work or the same geography, are they all the
I'd
same?
say what you just said, the values. Values are key. And that's what it turns out leads to good, not just business relationships, but personal relationships. You said you were talking about your girlfriend. If in a romantic relationship, it will work for the long term. For the short term, there are other things, attractiveness and humor and so on. But long term, it's common values. Those as similarity. Those are the ones that go the furthest.
Do you have any brand or company that you like the values of?
Well, Berkshire Hathaway, where Warren Buffett's company, that they have the values of honesty, transparency, credibility, uh, research of what they do, and they tell you ahead of time about those values, and they show them to you. When Warren Buffett writes a annual letter to his shareholders, on the first page, he tells you about something that went wrong that year, a mistake he made. And he shows you that he's willing to be honest with you. He's not going to cover that over. He's going to bring it up. He's going to say, and we won't do this again. We'll make sure we don't do this again. But he tells you the error on the first page, what went wrong, right? And I get his reports, and he does it every year, and every time I say to myself, "Wow, this guy is being straight with us. What's the next thing he's going to say now?" Well, the next thing he says is all the strengths that happened that year, all the good things. And now he's got me listening differently, processing the strengths differently because they occur in the context of his credibility, of his values for honesty that he shows us right from the start.
That's such an interesting answer. I never thought about it, but yeah, I love Warren Buffett letters. But do you have anyone else in mind, or just Warren Buffett?
Well, I like I like Apple. Again, it's a company that strives for scientific rigor and research, and they try to be different in ways that are customer friendly. So those values that come to the top, I appreciate.
Great. Now, jumping to the third principle, social proof. Why social proof particularly is very effective in reducing uncertainty.
Yeah. Well, I said earlier that we lived in what may be the most uncertain world that has ever existed for us on this planet. There's so much information, so many challenges, so many choices, so many options, and so on, that we don't know what to do very often. We're uncertain. Well, how do we reduce that uncertainty? One way is to look at what our peers are doing. If all our friends or all our colleagues at work are raving about a new film or a new restaurant or a new piece of software, well, that reduces our uncertainty that that's probably a good choice for us. And the more comparable those people are to us, the more similar they are to us, then the more that reduces our uncertainty. Oh, this would probably be good for me because these people, they're just like me. They're very similar to me. And so if they've tried it and they love it, I'll probably love it.
So I'm thinking, how can we use it in our product? So you're saying if we can show potential clients that other people actually bought this product, and what makes it even more effective if those other clients are very similar to them.
Exactly. Exactly right. And there are some companies that do this very well on the internet. So, for example, they say, well, here's what our female purchasers have said. Here's what our couples have said about our experience. Here's what retired people have said. And so everybody gets to see somebody who is like them, and they're more compelled by that information. So we segment the market not just in how we send our information to them, we then provide information about how these people have rated us. Look at these people have given us a 4.5 rating. Oh, if I know that, or people from my region, right, let's say, or my age, or my professional business, well, then I'm more convinced.
But how does emphasizing a trend rather than just a statistic number amplify the effect of social proof?
Yes. So my research team has done some of this research. And let's say you have a new product or a new feature, an add-on that you think is very positive, but not a lot of people have purchased it, and you want to convince them. But you can't use social proof and say the majority of people have done this, or this is the most, so this is the most popular item. It's not yet, right? But if it's good, you will have a trend in that direction. So if you were to say, and we've done this research, if you were to say, so 30% of our existing customer base has shifted to this new model or this add-on, this upgrade, it turns out that's the wrong thing to say, because that means 70% have not. and now you've got social proof going against you. Most people are doing the opposite. But if you take that same 30% and you say 6 months ago it was 20%, 3 months ago it was 25, now it's 30%. That produces a significant choice for the 30% that before was a problem to say. Now, because you've got a trend in that direction, people presume that the trend will increase, and it will be most popular, and they can get in on the ground floor before everybody else does. So we've done this, and many studies have done. I just saw a study showing that we have a problem with young women going into the science and mathematics and engineering fields. And if you present evidence that a particular company has an existing low number of women working for it, those young women, they were college students who saw that, did not want to join that company. But if you showed that that was a trend in that direction, even though it was low, it was a trend, now you got significantly more wanting to work for that company.
Robert, I owe you several $1,000,000 because of this. I remember like a few years ago when I was trying to raise money for my startup, I've approached several investors and they all rejected me. And then when I presented this information, I was like, guys, now we have this number of users. Last month we have this number of users. We're projecting going to have this number of users, and they can see the trend. And everyone said, like, this is a great company. Let's invest in it. Just way we say things differently made all the difference.
And the fact is, again, you don't have to deceive anyone. The trend was there. They just didn't know about it. Now, here's the one thing I would say about trends. You need 3 data points. You need the first one. Okay, that's just a statistic. If I were to say to you, 30% of our customers are buying, that's a statistic, 30%. Right? If I were to say to you, it used to be 20%, now it's 30%, that's a change, right? But changes often don't continue. Sometimes they level off, sometimes they drop. But if I say to you, it used to be 20%, then 25, and then 30, that's a trend. And people believe that will go into the future in that same trajectory. Three data points.
Now I'm thinking, how else can I use in the product? That's so insightful. Now, what are some red flags to watch out when evaluating authenticity for online reviews? Because now everyone using it.
Yeah. So online reviews, some people are buying them. Some people are cheating them. Some people are hiring people to write, here's what you should look at. How general is the comment versus specific? Do they just talk generally about it, or do they talk specifically about it in particular situations and particular features of it that they like? So fake reviews often just talk about the reviewer's experience. Oh, I love this, or I love going on this vacation, right? Because they were never there. So they don't talk about the specifics. They don't talk about a particular aspect of the product or service or event, the experience. So look for people who are specific and talk about the features rather than just their experience of it, right? And then, and here's a small thing, but it's true. Fake reviews use verbs more than nouns. They talk about going, they talk about being, they talk about doing, again, without any specifics. Where nouns say, oh, the dinner, the pork chops were great, or the coffee in this location was terrific. And it tasted very creamy and so on. So they actually give you the specifics of what it was that they purchased or experienced. That's the way versus generalities.
Sometimes what we do when we want to go to market with a product is we reach out to certain influencers as a social proof. Do you think that's a good way of using this principle?
Yes, it is, because that person is just like me. I mean, the reason we choose influencers is that, oh, I like this person. This person is similar, and so on. And so you can get validation, and you reduce your uncertainty. If this person, who's both like me and knowledgeable, okay, then I get to reduce my uncertainty. Yeah.
Now, I want to jump to the next principle, which is authority. Can you just talk a little bit about the distinction between an authority versus being in authority,
Oh,
and
yeah.
why does it matter in persuasion?
Yeah. First of all, it's also the way we reduce our uncertainty. Remember, I said when people are uncertain, they don't look inside themselves because all they see is that confusion. They look outside, and one place they look is to peers, to people around them like them. The other place they look is to the authorities on the topic, the experts, the people who have had experience and in this arena. And if they are choosing a particular direction, then we're more likely to say yes, because that reduces our uncertainty. Now, let's get to your question. What's the difference between being in authority and being an authority? Someone who's in authority is in your boss. They can get you to move in a particular direction through power, not persuasion. They push you. They give you, they can penalize you if you don't. They can reward you if you do. They can coerce you. People don't like that. People don't like being pushed. They don't like that kind of reason for change. It's not something that they see that has caused them to believe differently, just to do something different. Somebody who is an authority, however, is an expert. Somebody who knows what they're doing. Somebody who has the experience, knowledge to advise us as to the best way to go. That's the one we like to talk about in terms of persuasion. That's not power. That's persuasion. You're informing people into assent. And so that's the difference. Power versus persuasion. Yeah.
Let's say if I want to be an authority on crypto or AI, what's the difference there between being an authority or being in authority?
So an authority is someone who has the credentials to make me feel comfortable with their position on the issue. If it's just my boss who's saying, hey, we ought to get into crypto or whatever, or AI, well, that's the boss. That's not my choice. But yeah, I think the key is, that's the key, is the difference between being a real. So let me give you an example, another small big that you can use to demonstrate your authority. When you are a real authority in a situation, how do you convince people to come into line with your ideas? Suppose you are working at your company and you have this initiative that you think is going to be superior. And as we talked about, you asked your colleagues to give you their advice on how to make it better, and they did. And now you're proposing it, and you have to propose a budget for it and get it accepted. And let's say you've done your homework and you see that this would cost $200,000 over to implement and make successful inside it. It would cost $200,212. Right. Well, what you would do is lop off the 212. You say, "This is a $200,000." That's a mistake. Never give a round number for a budget. Where did you get 200,000? Where did you pull that out of the top of your head? Where did you get that? Right? How do I know that that's if you say 200,212, they know that you did your research, you did your homework, you figured out every cost, every expense, every amount of time, and now they say, "Oh, okay." Here's what the research shows. If you have a specific number in your budget instead of a round number, you get less pushback on that number. They don't try to reduce it as much because they see you as an expert on it. I don't know. So when I was growing up and I going to school, if I was ever in a math class or a science engineering class, something like that, and there was an exam, the instructor would say, "Don't just give me your answers to these questions. Show your work. Show how you got to that answer." I don't know if that was your experience. In other words, tell me how you got there. Well, that's what those precise numbers do. They show your work, that you have done the homework and the research to come to that precise number. You are an expert on this budget. So that's a small big. And again, there's research to show this. Round numbers, you get more pushback than specific numbers, precise numbers.
I was talking to a friend earlier, and he mentioned that he was applying for a job and he was doing his salary negotiation, and basically he wanted like $10,000, but he was like, "No, I want $10,500."
Yeah,
And because he made this difference, they didn't push back because in their mind he wanted a specific number and he does not want to budge on it.
right. Even though it was more money than
Yes,
$10,000, he got more
yes,
success.
he did.
That's the psychological interesting aspect of this.
Now, how can businesses effectively leverage testimonials from credible experts or authorities?
Yes. So in an ad that you have or a presentation, even a presentation that you would make, a PowerPoint presentation and so on, you have to get testimonials from legitimate, recognized authorities who can speak to the quality of your idea or the kind of idea you have or the product or service that you have. All right. And present those first. Don't bury them in the text of your message, because you genuinely have those testimonials from experts, authorities. Right? You should have the power of their authority influencing everything you say from the first word. Have those testimonials first. The Bose Acoustics Corporation had an ad, right, that was describing a new product, the Bose Wave music system. And it's a kind of a long story, but they asked for my advice on how to change this. And one thing we did was to take the testimonials that they had from experts and put them first in the ad. And also not just a single testimonial, but multiple testimonials. It increased purchases by 15%. Right? Just where you put the authority. So that authority influence infuses everything that you are saying before you say it. You want people to be listening to it and processing it and believing it more deeply because an authority has said so. Well, if you don't tell them about the authority until later on, they haven't been as persuaded by what you've said before. Yeah.
How can I assess if the authority figure's opinion is unbiased?
Yeah, so that's an important question. I think you have to ask yourself, if you are getting that information, here's an authority figure speaking in an ad, right? So first of all, you have to ask yourself, is this person truly an authority or just somebody dressed up to look like a doctor, you know, with a stethoscope? Ask yourself, and think about, did they present any credentialing information for this person or just show them in a white coat, right? And then even if this is an authority, let's say it's a famous golfer, right? And or movie star. But let's say it's a famous golfer. Okay. If the golfer is promoting golf balls or golf clubs, fine. What if they're promoting something else? Big screen color TVs, right? That's they may be an authority, but they're not an authority on this. And so those are the two questions I would ask. Yeah.
Now, let me jump to the other persuasion principle, which is scarcity. What does the fear of missing out make scarcity such a powerful motivator?
Yeah. So you're right. Fear of missing out, FOMO, that works very well because people don't want to miss things. And the reason that's the case is something that Daniel Kahneman won the Nobel Prize for recognizing. It is loss aversion. People are more motivated by the idea of losing a unit of value than gaining it, right? So, what people are, fear of missing out is the fear of losing an opportunity, losing some valuable resource or item, right? And we are more powerfully motivated to avoid losing than gaining things. So, for example, here's a study that was done. Researchers went door to door in a particular neighborhood and gave people an energy audit of their home. They rated how good the insulation was and the weather stripping and everywhere. And they gave people an amount of money. Let's say it was $1. This was done in San Diego, California. Gave people $1. They said, so if you insulate your home fully with our package, you will save $1 a day every day on your power bill. That was for half of the homeowners. The other half were told, if you fail to insulate your home fully, you will lose $1 a day every day. I don't know if you can feel the difference, but they could, because significantly more of them bought the insulation package when it was couched in terms of what stands to be lost rather than gained. That's why scarcity works so well, because loss is the ultimate form of scarcity. It means you can't have it anymore.
Now I'm thinking, okay, that's another small big that I can use tomorrow in my product, not just to build a new feature, but if I can highlight to my client what are
Right.
the feature or the benefits that they're losing by not subscribing,
That's right.
they're more likely to subscribe to it.
Right. And the thing that I think is very powerful in a lot of customers and businesses is losing competitive advantage relative to your rivals. You don't want to lose your competitive advantage and give it to your rivals by being unprepared or unequipped for the future.
So again, uh, my girlfriend the other day, she was trying to buy furniture online because she saw someone who have an offer, and they were like, the offer will end in 1 hour. So she's trying to buying so much stuff.
Yeah.
Then after 1 hour, the timer reset. And they're like, hey, the offer will run after 1 hour. And she always buys stuff.
Yeah.
How can businesses create this sense of scarcity without being so manipulative?
So yes, you don't want to do that because you're going to get resentful customers who feel they've been pushed and tricked. But I think the best way is if whatever you have to offer, you need to determine what is unique or uncommon or rare about it that people can't get elsewhere. That is, it may not be one thing, but it might be a suite of things, a combination of elements that you provide that nobody else can. And you bring that to consciousness and say, this is something that's unique here. It's scarce. It's only available here. Right? I would hate for you to lose the benefits of that combination of elements, of features.
Every time a salesperson use this sentence, I always give them money.
Right.
Now let me jump to the next principle: commitment and consistency. How does making a small voluntary commitment influence a larger subsequent actions?
Yeah, well, people want to be consistent with what they have already said or done. And they also want to appear consistent with others. They don't want to be seen as somebody who flip-flops, somebody who says one thing and does another. Right? So if they have made a small step, if we can arrange for people to make a small step in our direction, that is logically congruent with what we want them to do next, they're more likely to say yes to it. And here's an example of the power of a commitment. Just getting people to make a small statement in our direction. There was a restaurant in Chicago named Gordon's Restaurant. And Mr. Gordon was a student of the influence process. He was very knowledgeable about persuasion. And he was having a problem of people who would call and book a table and then they wouldn't appear. They just wouldn't cancel or call to change their reservation. It was a big problem for him. And he went to listen to what his receptionist said when she would take a reservation. And she would say, "Thank you for calling Gordon's Restaurant. Please call if you have to change or cancel your reservation." You probably heard that 100 times. Okay. He went and asked her to change 2 words. Here's another small bit. Thank you for calling Gordon's Restaurant. Will you please call if you have to change or cancel your reservation? And then he asked her to pause. And let the what? Yes, and let the customer fill that pause with, yes, of course, I'm glad. Well, that's a commitment, a small commitment. No-shows at Gordon's Restaurant, that is unannounced no-shows, dropped by 62% that day and never went back up. Because you get people to make an active, public, uncoerced commitment, voluntary commitment to what they're going to, and they're going to live up to it. Small statements in your direction. Yeah.
So let me ask you this question as a manager. What can I do to increase accountability and follow through on commitments within my team?
Suppose you're in charge of a meeting with your team, and you have each a task for each of the people on that team to complete before the next meeting. Don't let anyone out of that room until you have asked them, will you be able to properly complete this task by our next meeting? And pause. They're going to say yes. And you will have significantly increased the likelihood that they will work to do it because they've said so publicly. In your presence, they will make sure that they do it.
Robert, let me ask you a hard question, and it's very left field because now I'm thinking from a different idea. My dad is a smoker. I know it's a hard thing for me to do, but how can I influence him, or what's a small big thing that I can do to set him on the path where he stops smoking?
Does
Or
he
is it
want
possible?
to? Is he trying to, but he just can't make himself do it? Or is he
He
just saying, I'm never going
he
to?
he quits every week, and then
Okay,
he's back again.
here's what he should do when he quits this week, next week. Give him a, uh, a set of business cards with his name on the front, nothing else, right? And ask him to write on the back, I promise you, I will stop smoking this week, and give them to everyone he cares about in his life. To you, to his other children, to his friends, to the people whose regard he cares about, right? And now he's made a public, active, voluntary commitment to this. He, even though he might smoke because he doesn't care about his own regard for himself, he will care about your regard for him and the people he loves and respects around him.
When your book Influence is a big book. When you start writing it, did you do something similar where you declare to the public that you're writing a book and they hold you accountable? Or how does the process happen?
Yes, I did. I told, because while writing that book, I was going to have to stop doing my research programs, right? Because I will be spending time writing my book. I told all of my colleagues, and indeed the chair of my psychology department, that this was going to be the case. Well, if after all that time there was no book, we're going to, well, what? Well, what should we believe in you now? So I was driven to make sure that book was, I'll tell you the truth, I waited to write the book until, I was ready to make that commitment, that I knew that I had all the resources available and I would have the time to write it. And then I made that commitment because I knew I could fulfill it. And making that commitment would push me to do it.
I can't wait to start implementing this on my next goal. Now, the last principle, which is unity. What is the principle of unity and how does it differ from liking or similarity?
Yes, that's really a good question. The principle of unity says that we prefer to say yes to people who we consider one of us, not just like us, not just similar to us, but who belong together with us in a particular category. It can be a local one, right? You're from this country or this neighborhood or this region. It can be a political one. You're of this political party. It can be a religious one. You have this faith. It can be a variety, but it can also be employment related. Oh, I am from in this company. We are together in this company, right? That you have an identity that you share with these people. We favor and we follow those individuals who share our identities. We're more likely to want to favor them, to give them positive experiences, positive outcomes, and to follow their recommendations and suggestions, right? Because they're one of us. We trust them more. Right? So the difference is between simple liking, which is, and similarity, which is attraction based, and unity, which is belongingness. I am of these people, right? Well, if you can show individuals that you are of them, that you're one of them, all the barriers to change come down. All the barriers to influence come down. They want to follow and favor you. Yeah. So I'll give you an example from my work experience. A few years ago, I was writing a grant proposal for a big research grant, but it had to be in the mail the next day. It had to be postmarked the next day. And I was reading over the final version of this. And I came to one section and I realized that I didn't really have the evidence to draw the conclusions that I was claiming in that section. I didn't really have the data to support what I was saying, but I knew that I had a colleague who had done a study the year before, and he had collected the data, and I had talked to him about it, and I knew the data did support this idea. So but he hadn't even written it up yet. It was still in his archives. He was waiting to write it up for publication. Okay, so what I did, I sent him an email. Let's call him Tim. Right? Tim was not a nice man. Tim Tim was one of these very sour, negative individuals. We've all known them in our workplace. You know who those people are. Okay. Well, I wrote him an email and I said, I explained the situation. Tim, I have to write this section. I don't have the evidence for it, but I know you do. It's due tomorrow morning. I'm going to call you and we can talk about how to get that data out of your archives and over to me so I can include it in this final version of the report. Okay, so I called him and he said, Hello, Bob. I know why you're calling. And the answer is no. The answer is no. He said, look, I said, but it's due tomorrow. But Tim, he said, you're a busy person. I'm a busy person. I can't be responsible for your poor time management skills, Bob. So the answer is no. Well, uh, before I read the research on unity, I would have said, come on, Tim, I need this. It's due tomorrow morning. He had already said no to that. I said, come on, Tim, we've been members of the same psychology department at this university for 12 years now. I would really appreciate. I had the data that afternoon. I brought to consciousness that we were of a category. We belonged together in this unit. He knew that, but it wasn't at top of consciousness. I just brought it to top of consciousness. We have a similar belongingness. We have a we-ness in this situation. And I would appreciate if you did this. And he did. Then he did. So, yeah, that's, if you're ever doing business with somebody who you've done a lot of business with in the past, maybe as a colleague or a customer, a vendor, and you want them to move in your direction, don't forget to begin the conversation with, we've been working together now for whatever number of years. Just establish that unity before you go to the next step. And it changes how they feel about the request for the next step.
So these are the rules of persuasion. But what I noticed after spending some time with you, you're an excellent communicator. Your language is very precise. You use small words, small syllables. You use analogies and stories to drive the idea home. How did you nurture this?
I think it was being a classroom teacher in front of big crowds of students who they were taking my class not because they were psychology majors, but because it sounded interesting, or that it was one of the courses they had to take to get their degree. They weren't all that interested. So I had to build in storytelling. I had to build in the narrative, so there was something that would sweep them along with me as I presented the information. And I learned one particular kind of story that was very successful in keeping people focused. Mystery stories. Stories that began with a puzzle. How could this be that this many people would be willing to shock an innocent other individual because some researcher ordered them to do so? And that's a study, the Milgram study, right? How could that be? What does it say about ourselves? How do we understand? And then here's a possible explanation. And then I would show, no, that one doesn't work. Well, here's another possible. Well, that one does. And then finally, here's the one based on obedience to authority that works, right? Well, you keep them like entrained onto the material, and where otherwise they wouldn't be that interested in it. But if it's a way to solve the mystery, that causes people to stay with you in your story, right? So I realized this one time when I first started using these mysteries. I would start every class with a mystery, and then we got to the end of the class, and I hadn't solved it yet. I had gone through all the material that I wanted them to see. We hadn't solved the mystery yet, and the bell rang, and I said, "Okay, well, we'll get to this next time." And they said, "No, we're not leaving until you give us the answer." There's a psychological concept called need for closure, and I hadn't given them closure on this idea, on this mystery, on this piece of information I wanted them to learn. And so they weren't willing to go to their next class until I did. That was very instructive to me. Yeah.
uh, Creating a curiosity gap in the beginning of my videos, this helped really increase my retention as well. Uh, but what about your writing? How did writing help you become a much clearer thinker?
Oh, this is really a perceptive comment that you just made. Because for me, and I think for most people, writing clarifies my thinking. If I have to write it out, there are rules and norms and procedures that you follow when writing that lock you into a logical kind of progression, or a progression that entices people in before you want them to pay attention, and so on. So writing things down has always been important for me in refining my thinking about a topic. Yeah, it's an ally for me.
Oh God, we should definitely do another episode just on writing because, as you mentioned, clear writing is synonymous to clear thinking.
Yeah, yeah. And for me, it may not be for everybody, but clear writing precedes my clear thinking on it. It enables my clear thinking. Yeah. If I take notes to myself, have put in a diary or put in some paper that I have, and I think through an idea on paper, it's so much better than when I try to do it all by myself in my head with a million other thoughts. Yeah.
In your opinion, in the world of business, who do you think really embodies those principles of persuasion, or who's really good at persuasion?
It's Warren Buffett. It's Warren Buffett. Yeah. You know, when I first got a as a gift a share of Berkshire Hathaway stock, A stock. This is about 25 years ago, and it was worth $75,000. Right? Warren Buffett and his now deceased partner Charlie Munger have made that single share worth almost $700,000. That's how amazing they are as business people, but they're also amazing communicators that arrange for people to want to partner with them. Yeah.
I still read Warren Buffett letters just communication wise. He writes sometimes at a fourth grade level, but
Yeah.
he very articulate. Uh, Robert, we only scratched the surface on influence in this podcast. Where can our audience find you? Where can they know more? I'm going to include links to your book. If there's anything else that you want to guide our audience to?
We've just begun a new startup called the Cialdini Institute, where we do teaching and training of ethical influence for the business community. How do you move people effectively through research-based information and ethically in the direction that you would like? And so they can go to cialdini.com and find the Cialdini Institute, and it would provide them with access to any of the programs or books that we've done.
Amazing. And again, Robert, thank you so much. And hopefully next time you're in the UAE or Saudi or wherever, just shoot me an email. I would love to show you Arabic hospitality. It has been a pleasure talking to you.
I enjoyed it.